Mm. Well, this is such a treat to be able to feature you again in the same week. Now, those who joined us live, who are part of our Saturday morning session, our sacred gathering, where we really take this beautiful opportunity to work together as a group in our 8 points of the wheel, we got to spend an hour and a half with you, which really felt fantastic. You took us through such an interesting conversation, and we spent a lot of our emphasis talking about anchoring to this planet, really looking at the four elements and some of the unique opportunities that sacred sites offer for us in our own healing. But what I loved that you emphasized was our ability to also help heal the earth. And that was a pretty remarkable conversation to have. So I have to say, I was spoiled yesterday. I did get to practice some of the things that you were teaching, and teaching me specifically. It was really amazing to get to go to the site that we spoke with in our group. You and I spent the day in the hot, blazing sun in Minnesota. It didn't feel at all like fall. It felt like the heat of the summer, right? And it was amazing to be at that dam, to be seeing that water flowing, to be connecting to the plants around us, the breezes, the air. It was an awesome day to get to spend with you, to really like grok the things that we talked about the other day. So for our audience, what we ended that session with is promising that we would come back around and we would offer them some core insights of the things that individuals might want to be thinking about between now and the Halloween era, or that beginning of November, this next turn of the wheel, right? Depending on your language and your pronunciation, Samhain, Halloween, this next turning, the Day of the Dead. There's just so many ways that we look at and we reflect the energetics of this fall and the midpoint that will come between where we are now in the fall equinox era to where we're going to be heading with the winter solstice. So I'm going to sort of open things up, give you the talking stick, as I always say, and kind of let you prompt, if you don't mind, and sort of lean into the conversation. And you're going to reflect back some wonderful exercises for all of us in our thoughtfulness.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much again, Kristi. It's been, wonderful over the weekend, and yesterday it was great. I always love to go back to my favorite places and share with people. They're always exciting to me. And yeah, to be at the falls, to be there, and it was wonderful. So I just, again, thank you very much and appreciate it. So so let's go back and just, do a little quick overview. And based on what you just said, is that we are, the equinox started with the sense of us taking an examination of how is our life aligning with the things that we envision for ourselves and for the planet. And can we, are there some missing pieces to how we're envisioning that from a frequency standpoint, how we're envisioning when we go into meditation, or we, if people do vision boards or whatever, but are you actually feeling it so that you're using your full being to be attracting that into your life? And then in the opposite sense is, how are you creating that? To begin with is, how are you dialing it in? How are you moving to that channel? You can create the frequency, but then it has to find a place to land. You're transmitting, but then it also has to have the, the receiver. And that's where we were talking a little bit about how whatever the habits are that you're creating in your life, what are the, how are you arranging, how you, the ritual of your life, is it reflecting that energy of your vision? And then secondly, because we are in the season of Libra, and maybe even, I don't know about secondly, it's not in matter of order, but how is that being reflected to us in our partnerships? So we start with ourselves. What are we envisioning? How are we creating that out in the world? And then how are we going about finding the connections in community? Because this is so essential to us moving through this chaotic time, that the connections in community is where we're creating these new web strands. And those heart connections in particular, those are so vital. And so these are the things that are the reflections of how we're going to be moving forward, and how we're going to be able to hold the space to bring our medicine to co-create the future that we all want as we go through these kind of chaotic spaces. So let's start with the idea of the thing that I just mentioned is that so how are we going to be finding the frequency of what is it that you're envisioning? And it's totally fine to just start with yourself. I mean, I can sometimes think about, what do I want here on the world stage and this environment and blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that's important is that we can hold those things, but that can absolutely overwhelm us because we can feel powerless about some of the things that are going on. But the reality is that we have immense spiritual power within our own consciousness. And the more that we do our work, we hear that a lot, and it sometimes doesn't feel right, but it is a thing. So find within yourself where in that vision, and when you picture it, are you feeling it? Are you really feeling as though it is real for you? Okay. And just as though it's manifest for you. Again, these are things that maybe a lot of people know about how you go around doing this, but it's really emphasized at this time. That's why I'm bringing it up. So try to know, ask for, your guides, your higher self to help you find what's the missing note in the chords of your music. Okay. And find that. So that would be.
I love your prompt. I love this prompt. I just want to clarify one piece too, just for me, energetically, and for those who are able to do this exercise today or maybe even with the next day or so. We're also getting this opportunity to revisit this with you under the influence of this Capricorn moon, right? Which does
Absolutely.
amazing with commitment and structure, right? Commitment and structure. So like for my group that comes to 8 points of the wheel, either live or you tap into the recordings, I'm framing this for myself also as like, what are some of the structural commitments that I'm really willing to make right now to myself to be able to feel and to connect? And I love the framing that you're giving us in that, like, really, what are we envisioning for ourselves and what kind of commitments and structure can we put into place to really accomplish that?
Yes, exactly. And it's emphasized even more because the positions, just to throw in a little bit of astrologies here, is that Saturn is about that very much. Saturn's domicile is Capricorn, and Saturn and Neptune being the vision, Saturn making it real, are on the opposite end of the wheel. They're there at the other equinox. They're going back and forth between what are we going to bring in and how are we going to make it real. And that leads us to the next full moon, which is just a few days from now, on October 6th, is going to be in Aries. And that's the time where we would be taking the action, right? Reflecting, you're going to see, well, what actions have I taken? So I'm going to kind of, moving ahead, but it was a perfect segue to say that in these next few days, leading up to that full moon, where you'll be, have some awarenesses of what action am I taking towards creating the vision of my life I want, that's Aries, and Aries isn't all about selfishness either. It's about, a warrior energy to restore justice. It is about being able to lead, being able to be a pioneer, to do things in the world that helps create new things. So that's where the moon will be, and the sun still in Libra. So it's going to reflect to us as like, well, okay, so we've got relationships and partnerships, and those are going to be sharing and seeing how are we advancing the life we want to lead.